Imagine this. You're home alone, it's late, and a package arrives on your doorstep. There's no return address, no name, just a plain brown box. Inside there's a phone, an old outdated model you haven't seen in years. You power it on, half expecting it not to work, but it does. And on the screen, a single, unread message waits. This isn't just any phone. This is a device that shouldn't exist, holding messages that defy all logic. This is the story of Mark, a man whose life was turned upside down by a single, mysterious delivery. Mark stared at the phone, a strange chill running down his spine. He didn't order it, he didn't recognize it. Curiosity, however, got the better of him. He tapped the screen, opening the message. The text was simple, yet deeply unsettling. Tomorrow morning at 8:03 a.m., you will spill your coffee on your favorite white shirt. Mark scoffed. It had to be a prank. Some elaborate joke from a friend. He tossed the phone onto his nightstand and went to bed, dismissing the whole thing. The next morning, Mark brewed his coffee, completely forgetting about the strange message. He checked his watch. 8:02 a.m. He grabbed his mug, heading for the living room to catch the morning news. Just as he was about to sit down, his dog, Buster, came bounding around the corner, bumping right into his legs. Hot coffee sloshed over the rim of the mug, cascading down the front of his crisp, white shirt. Stunned, he looked at his watch again. The time was 8:03 a.m. Exactly, coincidence, he told himself. It had to be a coincidence. But a seed of doubt had been planted. He rushed back to the bedroom, his heart pounding. He picked up the old phone. A new message had just appeared. This one read, "The red car parked at the end of your street will get a parking ticket at 2:15 p.m. Mark felt a knot tighten in his stomach. This was getting weird. He spent the next few hours trying to work, but his mind kept drifting back to the phone. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. At 2:10 p.m. He couldn't take it anymore. He walked to his window, which overlooked the street. He saw the red car, exactly as described. He watched the minutes tick by. 2:14, 2:15. Suddenly, a parking enforcement officer turned the corner, walked directly to the red car, and placed a bright yellow ticket under the windshield wiper. Mark felt the blood drain from his face. This wasn't a prank. This was something else entirely, something impossible. He stumbled back from the window, his mind racing. Who was sending these messages? And how did they know these things? That evening, another message arrived. It was more personal this time. You'll get a call from your sister Sarah at 7:30 p.m. She'll tell you she's getting engaged. Mark's hands started to tremble. He and his sister were close, but he hadn't heard anything about an engagement. He stared at his personal phone, waiting. The clock on the wall seemed to tick louder with each passing second. Then, right on cue, at 7:30 p.m., his phone rang. It was Sarah, he answered, his voice barely a whisper. Before he could even say hello, Sarah's excited voice burst through the speaker. "Mark, you're not going to believe this. David just proposed." Mark sank into a chair, the phone slipping from his grasp. How could this be happening? The anonymous messenger knew his sister's name. They knew about her life-changing news before he did. The messages kept coming, each one more specific and unnerving than the last. They predicted small, random events, but also deeply personal moments. Your boss will praise your project report in the morning meeting. It happened. You will find a $20 bill on the sidewalk during your lunch break. He did. You will have a sudden craving for lasagna for dinner. He found himself ordering it without a second thought. The phone was predicting his life, step by step. He felt like a puppet, his strings being pulled by an unseen master. Sleep became a luxury he could no longer afford. Every notification sound made him jump. He started to feel trapped in his own home, in his own life. The phone knew his thoughts, his actions, his desires. It was as if someone had a complete script of his existence, and they were feeding it to him line by line. He tried to fight it. One message said, "You will take the stairs instead of the elevator at work." That day, Mark stood in front of the elevator, his finger hovering over the button, determined to prove the phone wrong. But then, the out-of-order sign caught his eye. He had no choice but to take the stairs. Another time, it predicted, "You will miss your bus and have to take a taxi." He left for the bus stop 10 minutes early, only to see it pull away just as he arrived, blocked by a minor traffic accident that had just occurred. It was useless. No matter what he did, the predictions came true. It was like fate was a tangible force, and this mysterious stranger was just reading the manuscript. The sense of dread was becoming overwhelming. He was no longer living his life. He was merely acting out a pre-written part. Who was doing this? And more importantly, why? Then the final message arrived. It appeared on the screen just after midnight, its glowing letters seeming to burn into the darkness of his room. Mark's heart stopped. This message was different. It wasn't about coffee or parking tickets. It was short, direct, and utterly terrifying. It read, "Tonight, at 3:33 a.m., a stranger will break into your apartment through the kitchen window. You will die." Time stood still. 3:33 a.m. That was less than 3 hours away. His death predicted with the same casual certainty as a spilled drink. Panic set in. A cold, suffocating wave. He looked around his apartment. The familiar space now felt like a death trap. Every shadow seemed to move. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like an approaching footstep. He raced to the kitchen, his hands shaking as he checked the lock on the window. It was secure. But did that even matter? The phone had never been wrong. He thought about calling the police. What would he say? That a magic phone told him he was going to die? They'd think he was crazy. He thought about running, just leaving everything behind and driving as far away as he could. But the phone's predictions had a way of boxing him in, of making escape feel impossible. The clock on the wall was a time bomb, ticking down the final moments of his life. 2:45 a.m. He paced the floor, his mind a whirlwind of fear and disbelief. 3:15 a.m. He huddled in the corner of his living room, clutching a heavy lamp, his eyes darting towards the kitchen. 3:30 a.m. The silence was deafening. He held his breath, listening. Was that a noise outside? Or was it just his imagination? 3:32 a.m. 1 minute left. He closed his eyes, his entire body trembling. This was it. The clock struck 3:33 a.m. Nothing happened. A minute passed, then another. The silence remained unbroken. Mark slowly opened his eyes, confusion replacing his terror. Was it finally wrong? Was the terrible prophecy a fluke? A surge of relief washed over him, so powerful it almost made him dizzy. He let out a shaky breath, a weak laugh escaping his lips. It was a joke. The whole thing was just a sick, twisted joke that went too far. He stood up, his legs weak, and started to walk towards the kitchen to get a glass of water. As he passed the front door, there was a soft knock. Mark froze. The knock came again, a little louder this time. Against his better judgment, he walked to the door and looked through the peephole. A man stood there looking distressed. He was holding an old phone, the exact same model as the one Mark had received. The man looked up, his eyes wide with fear, and said, "Please, you have to help me. I got this phone, and it sent me a message. It told me to come to this address at 3:33 a.m. It said if I didn't, I would die." And as Mark stared at the stranger's face, he realized he'd never seen him before in his life. The phone didn't predict that a stranger would kill him, it predicted that a stranger would arrive, bringing death with him. What would you do if your future was already written in someone else's hands? If your every move was just part of a script you couldn't see? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Who do you think was sending the messages? If you love a good mystery that keeps you on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that will make you question everything. We dive into the unexplained every week. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.